Oxman with MMA Mania. I'm here with XFC President Chris Defendis. Chris, how are you, man?
I'm doing well, doing well. Thanks for having me.
Of course, dude. Of course. All right. So there's so much stuff I want to get into, but I guess let's just start with the event that just went down April 30th. XFC Young Guns.
Mhm.
Overall, how did you feel about the event?
I thought it went really, really well. So for those who don't know, what we're doing is we're having these kind of smaller, made for TV events at Kill Cliff Fight Club down in Deerfield Beach, and they've been amazing partners to work with. We kind of stumbled upon working with them and talking to them. Some of our cards, our arena show cards last year, we used some of their fighters. Just started talking to Jamie Gall over there, who kind of manages the gym along with Dave Martin and Robbie and Henry. And we just kind of struck up this rapport, and we kind of share the same vision and kind of trying to look out for the fighters. And so this idea was born out of kind of some of those conversations and us wanting to reignite our Young Guns plan from, before I ran it, the previous ownership group. But like, again, putting on an arena show it's cost prohibitive. It's hard. You got to market it. You got to sell tickets. You got to do all this stuff. And if ultimately you're trying to get content and it's media and you want to get these fighters platforms, this is a good, interesting way to do it. And you mentioned it, or somebody, actually, I was talking to somebody earlier about, the smokers, right? So it's kind of like a sanctioned smoker show where you got a lot of fighters from the gym who show up, friends and family, and there's just a weird kind of cool energy around it because it's all these like fight experts. Like they know what they're watching their friends, they're watching other people. So this one was really, really solid because what we did was we captured two shows in one. So we had 10 to 11 fights on the card. Young Guns 7 and Young Guns 8. And so you just had that many more people, that much more energy, more buzz, more all those things. So it was really, really cool.
We'll get back to the car, but I guess how did you get the Florida Commission to get on board with all this?
That's a great question. Honestly, it wasn't any secret sauce. It was just like, hey, this is what we want to do on a Wednesday night. You probably don't have any other shows or promotions going on. What do you and what's consistent, right? It's 6 to 8 times a year versus every other show is kind of like maybe we'll go to Florida, once a year, twice a year. So so what they did was they were great to work with. They just said, okay, let's figure this out. Who are the local judges, physicians, who are all kind of local that we can tap in to do this? So like on a Wednesday night when they're just sitting home or they're not doing much, they're working a fight. And so we just have to make sure that we're just being good people and saying, hey, you're not going to sit here till midnight. Like, let's try to get them out as close to 10 as possible so they can go home, be with their families, get ready for work the next day, all that kind of stuff. So the commission was good with it.
Yeah, that's very
And
interesting.
they and they've been great because the first couple were kind of a proof of concept. So we're like, okay, we only want, it's to fill a 2 hour block, so 6 to 7 fights. You know how this works. All of a sudden, 6 fights turns into three because flights were canceled. They backed out last minute, and so we're like, can I swear on this? I don't want
Yeah,
to
of
get in
course, of
trouble.
course.
I was like, oh shit, we have 3 fights and how are we going to fill the time? Luckily, we're not selling tickets, so it's people weren't disappointed. So we just got some grappling matches and filled the time that way. But the commission was really really cool with that part because they understood that we were going through some growing pains there.
Yeah, I mean, regional MMA can be a fucking headache just because,
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, even guys that were like, again, Killcliff is it's a good problem to have. The fighters at Killcliff are, as you know, the highest quality. So sometimes getting fighters to fight those guys is really hard. So like they're in, then their coach says no, you're out. So they're out. Then they get balls and they're in again. And then so we had one where it was they were in, out, in, and finally out every day leading up to the fight for 4 days.
Has anyone pitched you on a Killcliff versus American Top Team kind of showdown?
They well we have not that one specifically, But there's been a couple other gyms, and I'll protect the innocent, who are like, we're not doing it because we'll get our asses kicked. Because again, the Killcliff guys are they're a different breed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. On this last card, who really stuck out to you? I know that Chris knocked out a former UFC fighter first round. That was very impressive. Just kind of talk about the fighters that kind of caught your eye.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I think so. Again, a little bit of a point of differentiation. We had Young Guns 7 and Young Guns 8. So 7 aired, 8 hasn't aired yet, but all of those results are in topology, and we don't want to prevent the fighters from promoting what they did on 8, even though it's not telecast yet. So we
Gotcha.
let them do all this stuff. But Chris did Alvitrez, I'm assuming you're referencing.
Yes.
He was a badass. Like he he did some damage. And I think he is one who definitely has a future ahead of him. Luis Hernandez also did really, really well. I was really impressed with his performance. And those are the two that really stuck out that I think definitely have a future in kind of what we're trying to do with young guns. Daquan Fuse was also someone who he's a big guy. He was a personality. Like he's a former. I'm pretty sure he's a former football player at FAU, either FAU or FIU. But personality, if he can get, if he can, bottle up that personality and get more experience in the cage, I think he's somebody that would pop as well. Just because again, it's he's a bit, those heavyweights, because I coming from HBO, like I have a boxing history. Like people they love the big dudes. They love the big guys. And if you get a big guy that has a personality, it resonates.
There's a reason why heavyweights always headline cars on regional shows. It's just something. It's just something. It's something that the casual audience wants to watch is big dudes. So you're right.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And there were some local Miami guys who were on the card that are just really, really popular in that region that, if we go back there and we do an arena show, we'll get them on the card because again, people showed up. They showed up for this event. So,
So I want to go on like on a little sideways thing. Yeah.
yeah.
So you said that obviously you worked at HBO for a very long time. I just want to know, as someone who I am a big MMA guy, but film and television or
Yeah.
that's my thing. So
Yeah.
just overall, how was it working for fucking HBO for almost 2 decades?
It was awesome. It was I don't want to say it was it was amazing. And I get sometimes stuck because it's like those are the best that was the best part of my career, but at the same time I don't want to diminish what I'm doing now or doing in the future. It's different. But when you think about it, it was, HBO was the zeitgeist of the culture. Sopranos, Sex and the City, Game of Thrones, The Wire. I mean, I'm going to blank on all the stuff we did do right during that window. And so the best part about it, and I think that kind of that formed who I am as an executive today, where it was very much a family type atmosphere where you were all kind of in it to win it and in it together. And you needed to be a rock star at HBO, but you couldn't tell anybody that you were a rock star. Like if you tried to take all the attention on yourself and and take that success, you were ostracized because it was very much we're all in this as a team, and that's the way the culture shined through. But it was also like we knew how to do things the right way. It was like best practices, implementing a strategy that you were disciplined about, and just try to also do things differently. Like it was kind of weird. Like you would talk to the creative people, and it would be like, all right, well, what makes this show better than that show, or what do you look for? And they're like, it's not a formula. Like you just kind of know it in your gut, and like they didn't want to do things that everyone else did. And then that was a little bit of my issue when Netflix became popular, and for a long time we zagged when Netflix was zigging, right? We didn't do the Netflix thing,
Right.
and it worked out well. And then the media industry shifted. We had new leaders, new ownership, and they wanted to follow the Netflix playbook. And as we know now, no one can do that. It's kind of similar. The weird thing with us, or what I'm doing, is like, UFC. I would equate
Right.
UFC to Netflix, right?
Right.
And
Right.
everyone comes in and they're like, I'm going to be the next UFC, and I'm like, you're fucking crazy. Like,
Ain't
UFC
gonna
is
happen.
is head and shoulders above everyone else. So mark your own, find your own niche. And and so that's why, the first time I get on a phone with a sponsor or an investor or someone like yourself, I I raised my hand, like, by the way, we're not trying to be Netflix, or Netflix. We're not trying to be UFC at all.
Yeah.
Like, we want to be a feeder system for them. And if we can be, a tenth as successful as UFC, we'll be in good shape.
Right. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's a very good mindset to have. So just, blanket statement, what is the best HBO series of all time?
The Wire.
I I tend to agree. It's the only thing that gets it is I think the first season is a little slow and then it
Yeah.
gets elite, right? Whereas Sopranos starts really good and then has like a questionable ending. So it's like,
Yeah. I just thought The Wire just hit what what was going on in the moment culturally. But there's been a lot of ones that I've watched that the names will escape me because they were limited series, especially during COVID, that were international. There was one from Sweden that was amazing called The Bear. There was it called The Bear or just Bear, I believe. It was like a hockey. It was a semi-pro hockey league in Sweden, and the star was accused of raping the coach's daughter. It
okay,
was
yeah,
it was
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
was pretty intense. So, but no, I would say The Wire. Ultimately The Wire. Now, I am a big fan of Veep. Veep was just funny as hell. So that was another good one. But I'm gonna stick with The Wire.
One of the most underrated series that I'm bummed it got canceled and never came back was How to Make It in America.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I love that
So I
show.
know that one. So that was How Do You Make It in America, Bored to Death, and there was Hung, were the three that got canceled around the same
Yeah,
time. And the reason was, and I get it, was they were good,
yeah.
but they had a small audience, and the thought was, if you were only getting 400 to 500,000 viewers, would that money be better served to try to go after something
Mm,
that might generate more eyeballs? That
got
was kind of how they looked at it. Because I liked it a lot, and I was like, I get it. I'm disappointed, but I get it.
right. Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes
So
yeah. In fucking Hollywood, another entertainment reporters, everything boils down to money, and if it ain't making money, just say goodbye.
exactly. Now, I would say the other piece that really kind of held me in this role is, being at HBO and WWE, like, production quality is super important to me. And so I could not, like, our shows have a much higher production quality than I think others kind of in our tier of MMA. And that's just because I think it has to look good. Like, you can have the best fights, but if it's a shitty production, it diminishes everything. And you can probably have somewhat average fights, but if it looks good on TV, it looks good on TV.
Yeah, no, 1,000%, 1,000%. So you go from HBO and then you go to WWE.
Yep. Yep. So I went to WWE, and then this was kind of in between the Vince era. So
Okay.
Vince left, Stephanie was running it. So she brought in a new CMO and some new staff, and I was one of those people. And I was in charge with interfacing with our broadcast and streaming partners on marketing plans and strategies. So
Okay.
think Peacock, NBC Sports, Fox Sports, Hulu, A&E with their WWE stuff. And so it was all to drive engagement to the WWE brand. So
Gotcha.
either to get new audiences, into the family, increase engagement with the existing audiences, and just kind of help the fans along the way, maintain that brand affinity to WWE.
Gotcha. So then I guess the biggest question I have for you is
Yeah.
why the fuck go to MMA? That's
Well, it's interesting. So, it didn't start that way, right? So when I was at WWE, my chairman of the board, Jeff Lambert, runs a marketing and PR agency called Lambert Marketing and PR based in Michigan.
okay.
And so they were the agency for the Michigan Panthers, the USFL, now the UFL team, Michigan Panthers. So it was their first season. And they were trying to find ways to increase fan engagement. So randomly, WWE's SummerSlam was at Ford Field, where the Michigan Panthers played. They had this idea like, what if we got a WWE wrestler to be the MC during the games? And so I helped work on that project, and we got Etor. We got Big E to do it, and who was awesome. He knows football. He played football at Iowa. He was a wrestler. Kind of he was on the sidelines with an injury, and just an amazing personality. So we worked. I want to say it was 5 or 6 weekends where we were up there with Big E. And so then when I had left WWE, that was coincidentally when Jeff had acquired XFC. And so we talked. I started just in a consulting capacity to try to get them some media deals. So did that. And then, interestingly enough, I realized that they didn't know some of the things I didn't know in terms of like, who's your broadcast talent? Who's doing the production? Who's doing this? Who's doing that? So I just kind of had to step in and get it done. And I think that caught their attention and, ultimately became the president about a year ago.
Interesting. So how have you enjoyed it? Because MMA is it to be blunt, it can be fucking crazy.
It is. So it's crazy. You're 100% right. I think the first interaction the first fight I got was when we were getting out again, protect the innocent. We're getting a vendor, and he's like, "I need cash." And I'm like, we're a publicly traded company. I can't just give you cash. Like, there's got to be a invoice and a W-9. He's like, I'm not doing a W-9. I'm like, you have to. Like, I'm not doing it. So I was like, okay. So I had to kind of brainstorm just little things like that. But, I've learned a ton about the MMA space in a very short amount of time, but also bringing in, kind of experts that have a history in MMA has been obviously my lifeline. So Jen Wink, our head of PR, came from UFC, won championship. She has a ton of connections. You know her well, ton of connections and knows the space. Eduardo Duarte, who's our head of operations, he was with the initial iteration of XFC. He runs a facility down in Buenos Aires. So we have people who know it, and I can kind of just help steer the ship. But ultimately, all those kind of inner workings of MMA, as I get up to speed with it, is really I lean on them a ton and their expertise. But it is a hard business.
Right.
But I think it's also setting expectations. I think, the promotions that probably don't do well, and I'm probably oversimplifying it, is they come at it from a fan perspective, which is important, but that probably causes them to uh, overdo it in terms of what they can expect, right? So I'm a huge fan of this thing. I think because I'm a big fan, I can sell out Madison Square Garden, and I'm going to get Madison Square Garden, and you're like, you're not doing that. Like, and then all of a sudden everyone
Yeah.
blows their money and they're stuck.
1,000%. Were you a MMA fan before you jumped on board and kind of got affiliated with XFC?
I was, but not to the level like I was, but I didn't know the inner workings as well as I do now, right? And I have a respect for the sport. I have a respect for the fighters. I have a respect for the promotions who have done it successfully, right? Like they have a level of expertise and a know-how that I think is hugely important. And more importantly, I think, and again, this kind of goes back to my HBO days and just knowing how that world worked. not dealing with promoters, but like dealing with our inner working people of like, on a big fight card on an HBO pay-per-view, I know that started at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and there was 10, 15 fights before the ones that anyone else watched. And these fighters were getting $1,000 a fight. And they were just getting taken advantage of, right? They just are. And so if we can do the little things to help these fighters fulfill their dream and do it in a way that's not just lip service, like it really means something. Um, and that's kind of the mission that we have, right? Like because we're publicly traded, which we haven't really gotten into, but because we're publicly traded, we are not so beholden to making as much money as possible on the night of the fight, right? So, and what's the equation for that, right? So you sell the most amount of tickets that you can, you sell the most food and booze as you can, and you pay the fighters as little as you can,
Right.
right? Like that's how you do it. We don't have that same mentality because we have access to capital through public markets. We have media deals which we focus on, so we can pay a little bit more than probably competing promotions to get these fighters. And then also with the Lambert agency behind us, we can also teach the fighters and educate the fighters on some of the finer points. Like being good in the cage is only so much. Like you have to have a personality that will cause people to want to watch you fight.
Right. No, 1000. Yeah, I agree 1000%. So I guess kind of big picture, what do you see for XFC? I guess, you kind of already said like you kind of see yourself as a feeder system, but like what's big picture? What do you see of XFC?
Yeah, so I think we continue to go down the path that we're going down and just execute the plan, right? So it's a combination of the Young Guns events that we have planned, which are, every month. Right now, it's every month except when we have a bigger arena show, and that's just purely, capital and staffing, right? We can't. It's hard to put on two shows a month when we're such a lean team. But so we continue to do Young Guns and arena shows in the US, but we also expand. So we have a distribution deal with Banjay Sports down in Brazil. So we'll do a Young Guns down in Rio or Sao Paulo. We're still figuring that out. We'll do an arena show and probably a Young Guns show down there. Given the connections that we have through Eduardo in Argentina, we'll do a show in Buenos Aires. And so we'll continue to expand both in the US and globally. And then I think where we want to expand even more is running a promotion we just talked about is really, really hard.
Right.
And there's a lot of small regional promotions out there that I think struggle to survive. And so are there opportunities to partner in some capacity where we can then work together and build scale so that we have, whereas XFC is just us right now. Can we add different promotions underneath the XFC umbrella that we're able to put on more shows? We can scale. We can both scale from a sponsorship perspective, a media perspective, best practices, venues, fighters, all of these different things that will allow us to really be a more consistent developmental league. Because the other problem in talking to some of the managers, the fighter managers, is there's like such an inconsistency in promotions and like how they treat fighters, how they pay fighters, what the production looks like, all these different things. That's hard for fighters to acclimate to, right? Like that's I think where we ultimately think we can go. And then under the Extreme One umbrella, like we'll then diversify into other sports properties.
I must say, and I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass,
Yeah.
but I've talked to 10 lots and lots and lots of promoters and CEOs of regional promotions, and I gotta say, like, you have a very good head for this industry of just how you think about things and how, I mean, I guess just being kind of real about the situation, right? And you know, and it's honest to God, it's refreshing to hear. And just, just like simple things of like having an event every month. That's one of the biggest things that I believe like will help promotions because you need eyeballs on the product.
Yep.
And that's why everybody knows the UFC because there's a UFC every fucking weekend. So
Every weekend. Yeah.
so it's just like
Yeah.
that. It's constantly in your mind. It's constantly in your feed. And so having an event every weekend or every month for you guys it's very, very smart. Um, and from there, like you said, it's just gonna keep kind of snowballing, correct?
Well, it's also kind of having an understanding of the media space, right? So having conversations with media partners, and we're like, hey, we're going to put on 4 big events a year. And they're like, that's great. But like, if you put on an event in January and come back in April, like the audience is gone. Like, and we have to then spend a bunch of money marketing it. And it falls on deaf ears. But if you do something every month, like it just continues and continues and continues. And then at the same time, they can take all of our library content because we have 150 hours of library content since we've been around since 2006,
Right.
and they're using that to fill schedule. And so there's constantly XFC fight content out there, which helps build the brand.
Gotcha. So what's your next event?
So we have so as I mentioned, we have Young Guns in May on the 28th, but that was already
Right.
captured, but it's going to be released on the 28th. Then we'll do Young Guns on the 25th of June.
Okay.
And then that'll be then another Young Guns in July.
Okay.
So the June will be back in Killcliff. July, we're still figuring out July, and then August is tentatively slated for the middle of August. We don't have a date locked in yet. I'm in the final stages of locking in a venue. So until I get that locked in, I don't want to spoil the secret.
Right. When
Yeah.
when is your next arena show or like your I guess number
That
one?
would be the August. Yeah, that would
August,
be the
August.
August one. Would be next. So we want to do another arena show in August, and then round out the year with our final arena show in December.
Gotcha. And I
Yeah.
guess
So this year we'll do to make it to kind of tie a bow. We'll do 9 Young Guns and 3 arena shows this year.
nice. I guess kind of rounding third on here. I guess how do you get top regional fighters to want to come fight for you?
So we had to pay, right? So I think unfortunately we've been dealing with this, and it's probably a good opportunity to set the record straight. The previous XFC leadership team did not do things the right way. They didn't pay fighters, frankly. Let's be honest. They didn't pay the fighters, and that's a death knell,
Yeah,
as you know, in this sport.
yeah,
So we had to, and also there was a lot of misinformation out there about whether that person was still involved, and I can categorically say they're not. However, they were pretending that they were. Fine. So initially, we had to pay fighters a little bit more than market to get them on the cards. Again, that's fine. But once we started to do that for the first show and paid them on time, did it for the second show, paid them on time, then it became actually they're paying us well and they're treating us well. And then that fighter community is word of mouth. And so it really helped. It really helped get fighters, along with like the media deals that we have, the exposure that we have, the cards, the production value. I mean, like when we were in Iowa, I probably had 3 or 4 separate fighters, walk up to me and be like, "This was an amazing experience. Like, this was so freaking
that's
cool.
that's awesome.
Like, number one, you treated us well. Number two, like, I don't know if you saw Jared Lathrop and his, pro debut and the
Yeah,
the spin kick that he did. Like, he was just like for that to happen on his pro debut and to be in an arena like that and have a production like that was like a dream come true to him. It was awesome for him. So I think those are the things that the word gets out, and it helps us. And I think, frankly, I feel bad because, when we had our last show in Milwaukee, I think 5 or 6 of those fighters that were on our card in Milwaukee got signed to GFL.
gotcha.
And so that they couldn't
Right
be
on.
on an Iowa card because they were for the GFL situation. And so that's kind of where they were.
Gotcha.
You
Got
got, oh, you froze for a second, but yeah,
Oh, gotcha.
yeah,
Um, all right, and then finally, I am on a rampage to get Kenny Cross into the
yeah.
UFC. I've I've
You've been
been
talking to Jen. You've been talking to Jen Wang too much.
I've been spouting it for the past couple years. I think he got fucked on Contender Series, and I think he's one of the most entertaining fighters
Mhm.
on the regional scene. So how what does it take to get Kenny Cross into the fucking UFC where he belongs?
Oh, I'm probably the wrong guy to ask because I mean we're putting him on a pedestal and giving him those opportunities, and he continues to deliver. I mean his last fight, I mean, geez, as a promoter, I wish it would have gone more than 14 seconds, but he just did it, and so we'll get him on our next arena card for sure, and then I hope that's his ticket. I mean he's earned it, and to my point earlier about having a combination of the skill and the personality, he absolutely has that. He absolutely has that mixture. So yeah, I think I'm really excited for what he has in store.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I mean, what do you think? Let me turn it around. I'm turning around. Like, what do you think?
I, I don't. It's frustrating because I think he's already he's already done enough to get the call.
Yeah.
He looks the part. He speaks well,
Uh-huh.
and most of all, he fights the way that people like to see fighters fight. He's
Yep.
exciting. He knocks people out. If he doesn't knock you out, he's going to a 3 round war like he did with Emmanuel Sanchez. Like it's
That fight was insane. I mean, that fight was the craziest fight
bonkers. It
I've
was
ever seen.
bonkers. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Straight.
we had Jeremy Stevens and Henry Cejudo at that fight, and they were like, "That was a UFC fight of the year, hands down, fight of the year." And just hearing Kenny talk about it after the fact, because Jen and I did dinner with him I think it was a month or two later, and he's like, "I had blood in my mouth. Like it was like you think that these guys are like used to that. They're not." He's like, "It's gross. Like it's disgusting."
Yeah,
To
no.
me and you, I'm like, I couldn't imagine to have somebody else's blood in my mouth, but that's what they deal with.
No, absolutely. So yeah,
Yeah.
man, I don't know. It's either the UFC matchmakers just have something against him, or I don't know what it is because I think he's done everything right
Mhm.
to get a shot in the UFC. So I don't know, maybe another knockout on an XFC card does it, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Even his promo after the fight was like it was
What do we
good.
got to
Yeah,
do?
yeah, absolutely. So, awesome,
Yeah.
well, Chris. Thank you so much for your time, man. I really appreciate it. Let's talk again very soon. And
Yeah.
if you
Absolutely.
want to you want to plug social media, you want to plug your shows, please tell everybody where to watch the last event, this next event.
Yep.
The floor is all yours.
Yeah, we just signed an agreement, a new distribution agreement that will bring XFC fights to the Dominican Republic through CDN Deportes. So to go along with BN Sports in the U.S. and Canada, and Banjay Sports in Brazil, and our XFC Fight YouTube channel where you can subscribe and get our events. We also have a breaking news on an agreement with CDN Deportes. So that'll start with Young Guns 8 in May, and we're excited to partner with them.
Oh, that's dude. Congratulations. That is awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So yeah, that's where we can see it. And then follow us on social, on our Instagram at XFC Fight, at XFC Fight is the handle.